There's a big cancel culture out there today. I say for anybody who's in Christian media, if you want to talk about the things that are important to you and things important to Scripture, but I say there's 5 things that will get you canceled. Let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about pro-life. That will get you canceled today. Let's talk about pro-family issue. If you say marriage is between a man and woman, let's talk about gender, that there's only male and female out there. And then if you talk about any kind of issue that Christ is the only way to heaven, and exclusivity and religion, that's going to get you taken off the social media sites, and that's just simply wrong today. And we've also seen a big intrusion of the corporate sector today coming in to say, hey, if you Christians can't play nice with the rest of the culture, then you can't do business.
And that is something that, in fact, NRB on the program this year actually chose to address some of these inroads of this ideology into the corporate sector with such things as ESG and the like.
Yeah, exactly. ESG movement, that's the environmental social governance movement. The DEI movement in the corporation, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these things that have really been pushed into the corporate culture today. So yeah, we had a panel on that. We had a panel on gender confusion. We had a panel on how Christians are perceived in the media, and not just mainstream news media. Christians are often portrayed as the fools, the bigots, in entertainment media that comes out of Hollywood and television. And so we talked about those issues. So we had a wide variety of panels talking about the core issues that are important to the Christian worldview and the Christian community.
What do you see as the biggest threats with respect to Christian broadcasting in general? You were talking about DEI, and I know that this deals in areas such as employment, and you think about restrictions that could possibly be implemented with respect to what a workforce looks like, or an ideology that a workforce buys into, which could be devastating for Christian organizations and Christian broadcasters. What do you think?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The interesting thing is there were 2 court cases over the last 10 years that were about Christian organizations being able to hire and employ people that fit their mission and the kind of people that fit in their organization. Both those cases were won on 9-0 out of the Supreme Court. But that hasn't stopped the government from constantly trying to come around the back door of that with these inclusion kind of rules that say, well, yeah, that's okay, but you still have to hire these kinds of people. So we see that constantly. We're working on that. I think 2 of the biggest things we talk about is the weaponization of government today. That's been a major issue of what's going on. I tell everybody, a lot of folks don't know, right after the Dobbs decision came out, there were members of Congress that wrote the leaders at Alphabet, that's the parent of Google, to say you need to change your search engines so that when somebody comes in and searches and says, hey, I need an abortion, or I'm looking for crisis pregnancy, that your Christian crisis pregnancy centers don't come up. That's the government trying to get around the First Amendment through these third parties. So that's the weaponization of government. The same thing happened with some of the conservative news stations. There's a group of Congress told these major cable carriers, well, you need to take these guys off. And that's the kind of thing that we're very concerned about, that continued weaponization of government.
Troy Miller joining me today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio, CEO and President of National Religious Broadcasters here at the 2023 National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Orlando. Well, there is much to be excited about with respect to Christian broadcasting. What are you seeing from your vantage point? You have the opportunity to interface with people that are in Christian media all around the world. What are some of the encouraging trends that you see?
Well, first, let's talk about traditional media, radio and television. Here, radio just had some recent surveys come out, and there was major increases in listenership on radio. Radio increased 12%, but it was Christian radio that increased. Christian radio now dominates the number of radio stations and the formats across this country, whether it's talk Christian radio format or contemporary Christian music. Christians dominate radio, and so that's very encouraging there. Also in television, the same thing. We've seen a number of increase in television platforms, and other things are out there.